Donald Trump surging in New Hampshire in a brand new CNN WMUR poll. He's on top right now at 34%, but Ted Cruz actually had a bigger jump from 6% to 14%. Marco Rubio and Jeb Bush are tied for third at 10%. Trump holding on to a commanding lead nationally as well. In the latest monthly poll, he's at 36%, followed by Ted Cruz at 17%, and Marco Rubio at 11%. This, as Glenn Beck says, he's ready to hit the road with Ted Cruz in Iowa. Well, will he be a counterweight, if you will, to Sarah Palin? We'll see. Joining me right now, Stacey Dash, Tammy Bruce, Christopher Bedford, and Gina Loudon. Stacey, I want to start with you since you're new to the show.
Yes.
First time. Yes. Welcome to the show. All right, listen, I got to tell you, these numbers, they're like, there's a million polls and they go all kinds of different ways. But I do find it interesting for me is that while Trump has a commanding lead, he's not necessarily running away with it. And in the background, we see a lot of jockeying around. It doesn't feel like this thing is over with, even though it feels like it is.
No, it's not over with. He has a far way to go. And I was just thinking about it. He has to actually debate, the Democratic nominee, who could possibly be Hillary. How it could ever happen, I can't imagine.
Well, aren't they doing that now? I mean, they throw barbs at each other via the media and I guess even through advertising.
It could possibly be, but when he does that, he wins. He's not a loser, and he says what he means what he says. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's no doubt the Trump train is running full steam ahead. But here's the thing, Tammy, like on this particular poll, when you take first and second, Trump's at 42%, Cruz is at 34%, but only 31% of the folks in this poll have said they are 100% have their mind made up.
Yeah.
It's hard to not see Donald Trump not winning the whole thing right now, but polls haven't been that reliable in the last couple of years anywhere in the world, and it feels like still it could be the top three, perhaps four people still have a shot.
Yeah, look, polls at this point in time, any poll really is a snapshot of a moment. It's not a reflection of the entire spectrum, and they inevitably change. The polls, as an example, in 2008, and they were generally accurate, had McCain and Palin up by 8 points. And then, of course, you had a surprise. You had the economic downturn. And that's where then the Obama team started to move up. The environment changes things. Surprise events change things. And we also know that Hillary in 2008 was leading in Iowa 4 days, 5 days leading into the caucus. She, of course, lost that state to Barack Obama. So what these candidates have to do, and especially Mr. Trump now with Sarah Palin, is try each day as you lead into those last 3 days of decision making to be the person as they're on the fence, as they're ready to switch over. You've got to be right there in front of them.
Gina, one thing I am noticing, though, Gina, is that maybe it's deliberate or maybe he's just settling into the leadership role, but it feels, again, and I think the last time I made this suggestion, Twitter went crazy, but it feels like Donald Trump is trying to be more presidential, if that's the right word here. He's not being as bombastic as he's been in the past. Starting off last night's, announcement with a shout out for Ben Carson and, of course, his staffer.
Yeah.
Just taking a more, for lack of a better word, adult presidential kind of aura about him.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think he's gotten more comfortable in his role, leading in the nomination, essentially, the way he has in these polls. It's got to be a lot of pressure, and it's not something that there's a book you can read about how to do it well, but I think he's catching on. He's hit his stride. There's no question about that. Grabbing onto Sarah Palin, super cool move with conservatives, especially in Iowa, and especially with the evangelicals in Iowa. And so I think he's probably gotten more comfortable in his own skin and where he is, and it shows. And I think it's a good thing for the whole GOP field that Donald Trump has taken this sort of more presidential tack.
Christopher, where are we now? I mean, is it still anyone's ball game? Because I see Rubio throwing commercials against Jeb Bush. It feels like, what are you guys doing? You playing for second place? Is there still time for someone else to win this thing?
Yeah, and I think it's going to be obviously it's been a new game. We haven't seen, history has not been repeating itself in any way. I'm really particularly interested in seeing this, how it plays out with Glenn Beck in Iowa versus Sarah Palin. I mean, Sarah Palin really energized the evangelical base when she was with McCain. And in 2010, Glenn Beck drew 100,000 people down to the National Mall to support his efforts. But Just last year, when Glenn Beck, Sarah Palin, Ted Cruz, and Donald Trump all came together at the U.S. Capitol, they couldn't even fill the Capitol yard. It was interesting to see exactly where the Tea Party strength had gone. And people like Marco Rubio, people like John Kasich, maybe less so than Rubio, really do have a chance, I think, especially in New Hampshire, to start to coalesce and pick off some of the more establishment candidates and start to win. This is going to be a much longer primary.
The establishment lane is wide open, and I got to tell you something, folks. In a few polls, Jeb Bush has come back. He's in second place or tied for second in 3 states right now. Maybe we wrote him off prematurely. Thanks. We're going to come back, and we want to talk about Hillary getting scorched by Bernie Sanders. He's feeling the burn because he's coming on like a rocket.